Hi, I'm LJ from EQ Sales. Now, I want to talk to you about a cognitive bias, and it's one that marketers have been using to their advantage within campaigns for eons. It's called the peak end rule. Now, we like to think that our brains are incredibly logical and they can, work in mysterious ways, but in actual fact, they have a lot of brain hacks and mental shortcuts that they take in order to be efficient with how they store and process information. And those hacks are called cognitive bias. Now, if I were to ask you how your day was yesterday, think about how you'd answer that. Now, it's unlikely that you would actually go back and identify all the elements that made up that day, rate them, tally them, maybe average, and then come to a conclusion to answer that question. And that's because we actually don't identify and judge experiences in a holistic way. Instead, we make a judgment based on two parts of that experience: the peak emotional part of that experience and the end of that experience. Now, that's why it's called the peak end rule. Now, as a salesperson, it's important for you to understand cognitive bias like peak end rule so that you can actively work against it. Now, think of a process or a sales cycle. If you can identify what are the peak emotional parts within that sales cycle, you can look to eradicate the negative and orchestrate the positive. Now, counterintuitively, it's actually the smaller emotions that create the biggest pain points for buyers. So think of your own personal sales cycle and look for occurrences where you could trigger emotions such as frustration, annoyance, confusion, delay. These are the negative peaks that are actually going to build and be what they remember most. Once you've eradicated the negative peaks, you can start to orchestrate a positive peak. And this can be personalization, it can be surprise and delight. Now you've manufactured the peak that you want to be most remembered by your buyer within your personal sales cycle. You can then look at how it ends. So how does it really end? And how can you leave the best possible positive impression at the end of it? Now, if you are able to leave a positive emotional peak and an end that is enjoyable, that is how your buyers will remember them, because of those two parts that your brain will actually hold on to in order to make a judgment call: the peak and the end.